Please welcome Jean-Baptiste from VideoLan, who will share with you the great history of VLC and Android. And enjoy.
Hi. Good morning. I'm going this morning to present you a bit of technical and information about VLC. I have no idea what is your technical level, to be honest. So please stop me when you have more questions, when I'm not enough in details, and we'll start just right away. So my name is Jean-Baptiste Kempf. I'm the president of the VideoLan non-profit organization and one of the main VLC developers since way too long. And I've been doing a lot of stuff on VLC, mostly on the desktop, the Windows and the Linux part. And unfortunately, since a bit, the VLC on Android one. So I'm going today to explain you a bit of stuff that you don't know about VLC. Maybe some of you have never heard about VLC. What is sure is I'm going to tell you a few interesting facts and stories. So VLC is the main project of VideoLan. VideoLan is a non-profit organization that finds code in the streets and gives them to people. Well, no. Mostly we do open source software. But the main story starts a long time ago at the Ecole Centrale Paris. So if you can see here, you will see the Ecole Centrale Paris campus. What's interesting is that in the 1960s, the French government decided that the Ecole Centrale Paris, because of the name, should be relocated in the center of the France, which is Clermont-Ferrand. This is important because the Ecole Centrale Paris is one of the only French engineering school that depends on the Éducation nationale and not other ministry, and so Ecole Centrale Paris is one of the poorest grandes écoles in France. So they said, okay, Clermont-Ferrand, there is easy, doesn't cost a lot to build a school there, so let's build that. So the alumni were not, the old students were not happy about that, and so they went around Paris and they found a place here, next to Parc de Sceaux in Châtenay-Malabry, somewhere in the middle of nowhere at that point, and they took it and they said to the Éducation nationale, hey, take this place and build the school. Don't worry, I'm still speaking about VLC, and this is important. So what is important on that is that this is owned by the Éducation nationale, and everything else is not. And especially not the campus, which is owned by old students and the students. And so the networking was not done by the school, but by a team of students. And in the 1980s, they installed something called tokenering. Does it ring a bell to someone? Yes, I see a few oldies around, okay. So tokenering is an amazing network, but has the small issue is that everyone is on the same ring. So the more people you add, the more the latency you get on the network, all right? So when you are 10, it's okay, but when you are 50 or 200, it's impossible. Especially, it's impossible to play games. So 1990, 1992, they started to play, I guess, Quake or Doom or whatever Duke Nukem 3D in network, and the latency was too high. So they went, the students who were managing the network, went to the school, say, hey, can you buy, please, a new network with this SNet? That is something that is not shitty, please. The Éducation nationale said, well, you know, this is not our property, so we cannot pay for you, especially not for games. And they had a lot of difficulty to explain to the university and the Renater network, which is a French Éducation nationale network, why they should buy a new network, especially since, well, it was before the web, or mostly before. So there was no need for anything else than telnet on the server and pine it or use Gopher. So this went for a few years until they went to a meeting with a guy from Bouygues. Bouygues are the guys who actually built the campus. And Bouygues had bought TF1 and they were working on TPS. And at one meeting, one guy said, okay, if you're able to show that you're going to destroy the network, I buy you a new one. Wait. Yeah, take some video, the satellite dish, MPEG-2, and streaming on the network, and then I buy you a new network. Okay, so that seemed weird, but they say, okay, why not? At that time, I mean, this was 486, no Pentium, absolutely no MMX, so decoding MPEG-2 in software was just like crazy. I mean, this is 10 years before YouTube, right? So that's how they started. And they started a new project, and the project was quite fun. So via Centrale Réseau was the student association, and they started doing video streaming in 1995 on IPTV. So the project was actually working. It took 2 years to complete. It was able to stream around 45 seconds of video. After that, there was no memory on the machine because everything was mem-leaked, of course. But it doesn't matter because the demo was 30 seconds. It was amazing, and it worked on many open source systems like Linux and also Linux, right? But it was enough for the demo. Everyone was happy, and at the end of 1998, they said, "Okay, let's do it again, but let's do it cleanly so it doesn't crash." So they rebooted the project with a few ideas in mind. The first one was being open source, which was difficult because of the school. The second was being modular and being cross-platform. Be careful, here we speak about Linux and BOS, right? So that was the goal, right? Not some stuff like Windows or OS 10, those bad stuff. And it was also network-oriented. Those facts are very important because they decided that in 1998, it was actually what made VLC really popular, even they didn't know why. It's important to know that it was a student project made by the student on their free time and on some of their work student side, but mostly it was done by students and not by the school. It took them almost 2 years to discuss with the university to get VLC relicense under the GPL because the school wanted to resell the video and audio MPEG-2 decoders to make a lot of money. But of course, the students were not happy about that. So after long discussion, they decided to license all the VideoLan projects under the GPL v2. I'm saying all the VideoLan projects because VideoLan was a project that has many software. One of them was called VideoLan Client and was now called VLC. And the other one was called VideoLan Servers, thanks for the two who are not sleeping. But they did a lot of completely stupid software. A lot of them are dead, like VLCS, which was a way to do multicast on a non-multicast network by abusing the VLANs. Yeah, basically the idea, so when you wanted to watch video from the satellite, you wanted to have multicast, all right? But they couldn't because the 3Com switches or whatever couldn't do that. So they were basically broadcasting on the VLANs, and from VLC, when you clicked on to play a video, what was going on, it was you were accessing the network, and it was changing you dynamically to the VLAN, right? And every night at midnight, everyone was back on the main VLAN in order to get internet back, because sometimes you change VLAN, VLC crashed, and then you couldn't access internet anymore. That was VLCS, great idea. The guy, when they explained that to the 3Com engineers that sold the switches, the guys said, "You are crazy." Some more interesting software that are still used, libDVD CSS, something to crack the CSS encryption of the DVDs, something that the Adobe loves. A DTS library, MPEG-2 decoding library, and so many other libraries. One that you probably have used or you use indirectly every day, X264, which is the best video encoder in the world, almost. That is used by YouTube, Facebook, Google, and many people around. And also some video editors and many other libraries. Of course, everyone, or mostly everyone, knows about VLC, the player, which is not VideoLan client anymore because it's actually a client and a server. And in fact, it's none of those. VLC and all the VideoLan projects are done by volunteers. I mean that there are guys who do that on their free time at night instead of watching movie, so that they do that. And everything we do is really in collaborative over the internet. We use Git since early 2007, and we use only open source software to do our development, including bug tracker, support, mailing lists, and so on. Most of the collaboration is done on IRC, which is a kind of Google Plus, but for older people. And it's important to know that the core team of VLC is 5 to 10 people, depending on how you count. But that we have a lot of external contributors. Every year, we have around 100 to 150 contributors. So now we have a French non-profit organization, Association Loi 1901, that is called VideoLan, and that is completely split from the school, and that was started in 2009, so quite late compared to the VLC project. And that just takes a bit of money from donation on the website, which, as you can guess, is not that much, and then allows us to buy hardware or broken phones so that we can work around the driver bugs. I'm sure a few of you know about that. So, everyone around is familiar with open source and free software? Yes, okay. So it's quite important to understand that VideoLan and VLC is like on the most bizarre side of the free software, meaning it's actually done by people, and we have no marketing teams. We do stuff because we think it's good and because someone sent the patches. It's like really free software, not like the Android open source or even the Mozilla one, where basically they have $1 billion per year. What we do is just because we think it's good, or because people contribute that. It's important that we actually care about the 4 freedoms, and this is very difficult to respect those days on the mobile space. Android is a bit better than the other crappy ones, but it's not always fun. I'm going to speak just a bit about multimedia. So what is multimedia? Multimedia is stupidity at its maximum. This is really sad, but it explains why it's so difficult to port VLC on your platform, because there are 2 main rules. The first one is like that. In multimedia, if there is a stupid way to do something, someone will do it, and of course will do it badly, and will complain until it is a standard and supported everywhere. And the second rule, which is linked, in multimedia, everyone thinks he understands everything, but actually no one does. And that includes the Google Android employees. And include me, of course, right? So that's quite important, because in multimedia, everything is broken. And when I mean everything, everything is broken. The not invented here syndrome is very present. There is 42 ways to do anything. All containers are complete shit and crap. The 2 who are almost acceptable are MP4 and MKV. Hello, Steve. No, MKV is awesome. And people still use FLV or OGG or AVI all around. So all the codecs are bad. Many have bad designs. Most encoders are wrong and badly used because some guy who thinks he's a script kiddie does a nice tutorial and then puts everything inside everything. So, for example, you have people who put, I don't know, H.265 in FLV because they can, or people who pack ProRes video inside MP4, inside an MKV file that is zip and shared on torrents, and stuff like that. Everyone uses wrong containers, like people who put H.264 in AVI, which is not possible. There are too many codecs, and every codex has too many profiles. And of course, subtitled is so bad it's not funny. There are the anime guys who want to do some stuff that are flashing all around, and then there is the web guy who wants everyone to support CSS inside subtitles. And then you have also the people from the analog world that still want to put the analog subtitles that were on the line 21 because of a bug of the TVs inside IPTV, right? Excuse me. And of course, metadata is broken. Like some people have great ideas. For example, the OGG format. If you want to put just a NART, so OGG for Vorbis. Vorbis is a good codec. OGG is a bad muxer. You take, I don't know, a coverage, right? And you take it, you base 64 it, so you have a text of the image. Then you put it inside the comment inside the format, which is a binary format. So you take some binary, you put it base 64.8, so you got a text, and you put it back in binary as a comment. And they did that like 5 years ago, right? That's not like in the 1990s. So multimedia, everything is broken, but that's cool because that's why it's funny. If everything was simple, it would be interesting. And it's also one of the remaining parts where, well, JavaScript is not there yet with basically what games. I mean, multimedia and games are the only one who actually need native code. Because we need to deal with all this shit, and we need to do it fast because you want to play in real time. And because of that, on multimedia and mostly on the mobile, we actually write assembly. So for us, Java is like really, really high level. So what most of you are supposed to use, and like the C and C++ is already sometimes too high, and so that's what we do. Back to VLC, and not just about multimedia, which is why we introduced the cone. The cone player, or known as VLC, but when I go and meet people and say I work on VLC, people say, don't know that. Yeah, it's the cone that play video. Oh, yeah, I love it, I have it. So the cone player is quite popular because of being a cone, but also because it plays everything, all the broken formats since a long time, including Matroska. And one of the reasons it became popular also was because, as I explained in the beginning, if you were listening, it's a network-based player because it was done to play files on a network, and actually not files, but streamers. Which is good, because at the time of Emule, something that none of you have used ever, right? You were downloading stuff and it was very, very long. And as soon as you had like 10 megabytes or 20 megabytes at the beginning, VLC was able to play it. Because, in fact, to play correctly AVI, you need to go at the end of the file, but you haven't downloaded it yet, so you don't do that. But VLC, as it's a network player, is able to deal with that. So if you were downloading a Disney movie, and then you play and you realize it's porn, then you could stop directly, or the other way around. If you were downloading and you don't want a Disney movie, right? So that was one of the reasons why VLC was quite popular, became quite popular, and the other because it was working also on Mac and on Windows. The ports were done quite quickly in 6 months, and the reason why they were able to do that quickly was because of the modularity they decided in 1998. When it decided that the modularity of VLC, they didn't think about that, but that's how it helped to move to Mac OS and Windows. So today VLC works, of course, Windows, Mac, Linux. The last version is finally working on OS 2, which is really great for the 2 users in the world. Maybe they are only one, the guy who is developing it. We play, of course, on all the BSDs, Solaris, and so on. And lately, we are now able to exist on Android, iOS, and other mobile formats of systems. VLC, to give you an idea, it's around 900,000 downloads per day on the VideoLan.org website, which doesn't count the download.com or anything that is done by Linux distributions or on the Play Store. Since we started counting, which is around 2006, we have seen more than 1.5 billion downloads of VLC, and it's installed in 1 every 6 Mac, and it's on the top 15 software on Windows, and which is more interesting. It's the most used French software by a lot, which is completely useless to know because everything we do is in English. All our communications are in English, and even the minutes and meetings of the nonprofit are in English. VLC can play a lot of stuff, from DVDs, Blu-rays, network card, capture card, ISI, DVB, and all those stuff, but also, of course, network stream lately with adaptive streaming, HLS, Dash, and so on, but also external hardware. And I'm going to give you a few screenshots. So this is GoldenEye DVD playing on VideoLan client. You see, it's still the old name. It's probably the first first DVD ever played, which is why all the VLC code names were based on some GoldenEye characters until the 1.0. And you see, it's a very old GNOME. I don't know what, maybe 1. I don't know. Then we rewrote the UI for the first time in GTK. So that's also a very old GNOME. This is the first macOS version with those very weird round buttons, and of course the one that most people use for a long time, which is the WXVidget version here on a GNOME 2. It changed, of course, and the best version, the one that plays ponies, right? So. As I said, VLC in fact is not a player, it's not a streamer. VLC in fact does not exist. VLC is a very tiny wrapper around libVLC, which is a multimedia framework, like QuickTime, like GStreamer, like DirectShow, or like, no, you don't have that on Android, like StateFry maybe on Android. Everything is licensed under the LGPL. For the engine, so you can use it in your own application to do bad stuff, which is non-open source software, which most of you do. It's bad, you should change. What it means is that everything is done dynamically. VLC is just very simple and calls libVLC, which is the simple and stable API above the VLC core, and then you got modules. The VLC core is quite simple and doesn't do anything mostly, except doesn't know how to do decoding, it doesn't know anything about the platform. It's just a very simple abstraction. And then you got a decoder and so on. So if you need to play a MKV file, then you're going to open the file module, and then you're going to open the Matroska module, and then you're going to play whatever you put in it. So the core is quite light and doesn't know anything about the codecs. It's just able to do memory, networking, thread handling, which was the biggest issue on Android, module loading, and basically synchronization between tracks. What it means is that to port VLC on a platform, you just need to port the core, and because this is mostly where the access to the system is done, and then most of the module will follow. Like all the codecs are just plain C or C++, and you can directly do that. The fact that it's a module and was important because when you port to a new platform like Android, you basically port the core and everything, and then you port everything is almost directly ported, and then you do an audio output, which is a way to output audio, and then you have a video output, which is a way to output video. Thanks. And mostly that's what you need. And a UI, but I mean, who cares about UIs, right? VLC is not that much code. The core is 100,000. The whole VLC is 800,000. But when you compile everything, you got around 10 million lines of code. The Android version has only 7 million, which is not that much. And that's outside the UI, right? This is just a C and C++ and assembly part, right? So how does VLC work? Yes, okay. So VLC is basically a network-oriented graph, which means that data come from your left and goes on your right. So you have you open the protocol, which can be HTTP, file, FTP, DVB, or all the other. You start looking at the beginning of the file, and when you look at the beginning of the file, you just realize that, oh, this looks like MKV. So you try to open the MKV demuxers, it runs, and then based on that, you're going to split in different tracks, video tracks, audio tracks, subtitle tracks, and some other crap like metadata that I already explained. And then for the video, you just filter and output it, and for the audio, you filter and output it. And for subtitles, you need sometimes to do different things because you need to actually render the text inside and merge it in the video output. In the case of VLC, you also are able to encode and mux, which is to do actual streaming. Yes, sorry, it seems I got a small issue. Give me a sec. Yep. Whoa. Okay. I'm sorry, for some reason one slide did not go through. So VLC for Android, and I'm just going to speak about VLC for Android from now on. VLC for Android is 100% open source, and we don't link to anything that is not open source, which means that we don't link to Google Play services, for example. We work on since 2.1 and up, and yes, we still support 2.1, and yes, we are going to try to still support 2.1. It's a full video player. We play all the codecs and format and protocol than VLC does. Sometimes it doesn't work because we forgot one module, which happens quite often. We have hardware decoding and multi-core decoding, which is important. But compared to the desktop version, we actually have an audio player that is actually working with a media library. It uses an audio background service, so you can actually not use Google Music, but use VLC. And so that's mostly it, and I'm going to explain how we started. So when we started was when at some event à la cantine, we were allowed and we found some free Nexus 1 that fell off from one of the Google trucks. And it was in October 2010, and well, cool, Nexus 1. So we started just like 1 month after. In November 2010, and actually everything was mostly working in February 2011. Not everything was perfect. There was no UI, just a selection of files, but it was working. In the summer 2011, since a student did the first working UI in the Google Summer of Code, and so at the end of the summer 2011, it was mostly working. From that point, this was the UI with 2 tabs, audio and video. And you can't see it, but there is a very, very dubious gradient effect that was designed, really ugly. But actually, it was working for us, and it was not on the Google Play Store because of the Google Play Store was not compatible with the GPL at this point, and not much happened from that point. We had a few technical difficulties. The first difficulty is that Android is not able to load enough chair modules. So in VLC, Windows or Mac version of VLC, you have 300 modules. And so you need to load a lot of them in order to do the playback. On Android, well, Bionic dies after you load 20 SOs mostly. So you can't use this approach. So we had to modify the VLC core in order to do one big blob and statically link everything. But the problem is when we did that and we statically linked all the modules in libVLC, it didn't work for the GNI. So we had also to statically link the libVLC inside the GNI. Bionic. So Bionic is the libc of Android. Who doesn't know what a libc is? Wow. So Bionic is a piece of crap, and I'm polite. It's completely not invented syndrome. It has broken pthread, no RW lock. It doesn't have implement pthread cancellations. The white cars is broken, the off-T are broken, so basically everything that we care about is broken. So how do we fix that? Well, basically we rewrote some like pthread cancellation above the other pthread features using very ugly hacks. But it's actually working, so we have pthread cancellation. For the read-write lock also, we did some stuff by basically statically link some pthread read-write lock implementation from later version of Android, which were actually working. And for off-T, basically we redefine off-T. Audio is a mess also. It's very difficult to get correct lip sync because in theory, the only way you should be able to do audio output is using OpenSL, ES on Android, which is only available from 2.3 and over. So, and we support 2.1. But also many manufacturers, like I don't know, Qualcomm, for example, have broken drivers. So if you resample, in some sample rates, you're just going to drop the audio. Android has no way to get a YUV surface. That's quite incredible when you do an embedded device and that every Android chip has YUV support in hardware since a long time. So basically we started displaying with RGB. The most popular player, MX player, tricked it by using RGB 16 bits instead of full 24 bits. We decided not to do that because we wanted quality, even it was not fast enough. And the size, it's very difficult to do many binaries. Our SOs are 12 megabytes, so the ratio to SDK and DK is really the opposite of everyone else, and so it blows quite fast the size of the APK. And also the problem is that there is no way to detect some features on the Play Store. For example, you don't know if a device is going to support FPU or not, or if you're going to support Neon or not. Because, for example, the genius guys at NVIDIA decided that they were going to do the Tegra 2 by taking Cortex A9, which was awesome because everyone was using Cortex A8, but remove Neon. So Neon is the kind of MMX or SSC for ARM. And of course, without that, you don't do anything in multimedia. So, and it was at the time of the Honeycomb tablet, so every one of them had those Neon tablets, but you couldn't know if a Neon were there, right? Amazing idea. But, I mean, lots of those stuff are bad, but I mean, it's normal, right? When we port to iOS was very difficult. I don't even speak of the Windows RT, Windows Phone stuff, because I'm going to die laughing or crying, depending. But some of them are really annoying. I mean, the YUV surface, I don't understand. Still doesn't make sense. And still not present on Android L. So after like 6 months of doing absolutely nothing, we started actually releasing VLC in July 2012 on the Google Play Store with a few countries, I think 2 or 3. It was ARM v7 only because of the issues I mentioned, and we blacklist the Tegra 2 tablets at the beginning. We had numerous crashes, of course, quite good feedback, and a very scary warning that was going to tell you that it was going to destroy your house, kill your kittens, and start the Mayan apocalypse. That was in 2012, of course. But this warning is still present, but it's going to go away soon. It is under GPL v3 because there is no other way to do it on Android, because you need to link to Apache 2 compatibility libraries, and Apache 2 license plus GPL v2 gives you GPL v3. So a few very ugly screenshots. So that was the first version of on the store with those 2 tabs and those very nice gradients. Yeah, and this was the first audio video player. But yeah, we are not the best, right? So we did a bit of work because one of the main feedback. So we did some stuff that were a bit less ugly. which was, so you don't see it because of the beamer, but it's some kind of a gray pattern that you found a lot on the iOS apps, if any of you ever did iOS. You shouldn't. And of course, an audio player. We had the first, in end of 2012, the first tablets UI, so, I mean, just works. And then people started complaining a lot about being not hollow. So we had one guy in 2013 that gave you some ideas on how to make it more hollow, which finally we did, and is mostly what you have now on the store. And of course, it's great that we have now hollow, because now we need to move to material. So this is the audio part. So you have a selection by artist, and for each artist you have artist and songs, album songs. You have a mini player everywhere. Even if you're browsing, you can pull it up and get the playlist that you can reorder and stuff. It's a bit like the Google Play interface, but a bit simpler, and it still works on 2.1. It's important that it still works on 2.1, because actually on 2.1, usually the guys who are stuck on that have very crappy hardware, so they can play audio, but video, not really. And here is the video part. So as you can see, the default one is white, but some people complain, so we also have a black version of VLC. You can go in the preferences and change that. We have, of course, a sliding menu, and there is not much in it, basically just audio and video. But we're going to do cool stuff on it soon. So now, we are going to release VLC for Android 1.00 in the next few days. As soon as VLC 2.2 for desktop is out, we release. We have already a lot of kind of whoops. That was weird. I'm sorry. So you won't see numbers because. So basically, we have 37 million used on the Google Play. We have a few on the competing app stores that don't exist. The retention number is around 22 million people who still have the app. Most of the people who install and install were in the older version that were quite crashy. What are we going to do next? We are going to work a lot on hardware acceleration, mostly for now we have good hardware acceleration for media codec, which is 4.3 and over. It's also possible in 4.1 and 4.2, but broken everywhere. So OpenMax OMX to have it playing on 3.0 and 4.0 and 4.1, because there are still a lot of devices. We are going to have a media codec native and not a Java GNI one, because it's going to be out for Android L. Of course, we're going to work on Android L. It's already started. And we are going to work quite a bit on Android TV, because it makes sense for VLC. If you run VLC, you're going to see that on the sliding panel on the left, there is not much options, right? There's just video and audio. And a lot of people want to play other stuff. We never did that because we decided that we wanted only to have a good player, and then we will add stuff. And now we think we have a good enough player. And so we are going to add Samba, UPnP, Facebook, Google+, so you can click and have all your Google+ video, the 3 that you have with your 3 friends, and so on. A last thing that is important for developers is basically that we are going to have we are going to work a lot on the libVLC API, so you're going to be able to integrate it by just replacing the normal media player. You just use VLC and it's going to expose exactly the same API, and it's LGPL, so you can do whatever you want. It's not almost ready, but it's going to be in a few weeks and months. If you want to help, please welcome. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please ask them. If you have no questions, please don't ask.
Hello. Very good talk, by the way.
Thanks.
First question is, do you recommend to use NDK if you want to share code between different platforms? If you want to code in C++ and use this in Android, would you recommend to use NDK?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any other way to do cross-platform stuff except the Xamarin part?
No, but some people told us that NDK is a mess and there's some bugs that you can't really track.
NDK is a huge mess. They don't. When you download the NDK, you have now 8 compilers or something, like GCC 4.4, 4.6, 4.8, C-Long, and LLVM, but there is no other way. So yes, it's a bit difficult to bootstrap, but then if you actually want to have something that works on multiple platforms, there is no other way. I would recommend it only if you need performance, right? So if you're doing a Twitter client, for example, you don't need NDK, and you shouldn't use the NDK when I see that. But if you do like video games or multimedia, there is no other way.
Okay. And second question, do they still use ERMA plugs at Centrale?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically they have this ERMA RG45, and so the people just plug the ERMA RG45, so they have the normal RG45. But the problem with that is that you need to disable the full duplex on the switch, because else you're going to make loops on your whole network.
Thank you.
Other questions? Come on. No question? Yes.
So is it being used for any commercial purposes, like any TV manufacturers contacting you?
Yes.
Make a lot of money on that? No. For the school.
I'm trying to think about some stuff I can say. No, on Reddit I cannot say much. The problem is that so far so on iOS, where the port was a bit more mature, we have a very nice mobile VLC kit, which is really Xcode-like. So if you like pain, but you like those kind of stuff, Xcode, it's really easy to use. For VLC on Android, you need to compile VLC, which is not the simplest, even if you know the script, because it can break often. And so some people have done it, and a few big companies, yes, I can't give the name, unfortunately, but it's not that simple. What we've done, for example, is we've been pre-installing some tablets, but that's not really what you care about.
Okay.
Yes, hello. A question about adaptive streaming. I checked adaptive streaming a few years ago. It was a bit shaky. What is the status right now? Because I didn't check recently.
Which one do you care about?
HLS and smooth streaming, both of them.
So smooth streaming was not working for a long time, because I think we just added that in 2.2. So it should work now. HLS works with version 1, 2, 3. V4 does not work. And V5, V6 don't. But it's not really difficult to do, and we have a few big corporate TV clients who are asking, so it's getting merged soon. We just added HDS, the Adobe thingy that no one knows about. And for Dash, we support some, like the ISO MBFF one.
Dash is a mess anyway, so.
Which Dash?
Yeah, exactly.
So basically we're going to support the YouTube Dash, which is Dash WebM VP9 Opus. And we're probably going to use the ISO MBFF1 and the live. But it's just like, I didn't care much because I don't like just the idea of adaptive streaming. But this is probably going to be one of the major focus of VLC for the next release. Other questions?
No time. Thank
Really?
you very much.
Should you use VLC or MX Player, stuff like that, like actual code? Thank you very much.